Thank you once again for joining me on YouTube as I talk to a vertical star. I'm really excited about this one because Robert Keefe is one of the first people I talked to when I set up my Instagram account. And I got particularly excited because he is from the UK. And I'm going to ask him to introduce himself. And I suspect you won't be able to tell he's from the UK because he has rather ditched his accent. So, Robert Keefe, over to you.
Well, that's throw me in it there. Yeah, for everyone who does or doesn't know me, my name's Robert Keefe. I am a working actor out here in Los Angeles. I was originally born and raised in Leeds, England. I made the move here coming up on 10 years ago now as a permanent move, and I was here back and forth for 2 or 3 times a year for maybe 5 years prior to that. And yeah, like everyone else who's on this ride with Jen, I have managed to find a foothold in this wonderful world that we call the vertical world, and it's fantastic so far. So thank you all very much for this, and thank you for doing it.
So I want to go back to the fact that you were born and raised in Leeds. Now, you would have had, if people watching this don't know, Leeds is up north in the UK,
Yep.
which basically means it's north of London. It's near York. It's in Yorkshire, isn't it? And it's kind
It is,
of
yeah.
vaguely in a line with like Manchester, Liverpool, Leeds, Bradford. There's kind of all these cities there.
Yeah.
And there is quite a distinct accent. So I'm intrigued. Was that a conscious decision when you went to America of like, I need to lose the accent, I need to find a
So
standard American one?
the accent that I have currently, that I speak with on a day-to-day basis out here, isn't what I originally started out with. When I was about 17 years old, I made the conscious decision that I didn't feel like I was booking as much work all around England, not just the Emmerdales, the Coronation Streets, things like that. I was booking work on them, but the one returning thing that I had was your accent is stopping you from going south of Yorkshire, or anywhere sort of that northern border, Yorkshire and Lancashire. And so I went to school, and I was every single day doing little bits of work just to change the way I pronounce certain things. So it got to a stage where it just became a very natural thing for me to do, where words that my brother and my sister would say are not how I would pronounce them. So I guess the one that comes up, especially over here in America, water. In Yorkshire, it's water. For me now, it's water. So to some people, it may not be a massive difference, but to a trained British ear, it's a massive difference. And even now, I don't say it that way anymore if I'm not paying close attention. Whenever I get English, like British required role auditions, I really have to think. And I really have to pay attention to how I'm talking. And I've still never booked one yet. One that says must be specifically English. I've never booked one yet. I know lots of the people who have booked them. And yeah, I can't have a criticism of it because I'm taking jobs away from them at the end of the day. So.
Oh, that's fascinating that you did that. And it is something that happens in the UK. It's a bit of an issue. You get a bit difficult down south. I think it's got better since you were here.
Yeah.
I think more acceptance of regional accents. I just want to touch on things just to explain to people who aren't in the UK. You mentioned some of the shows that are kind of, if you're an actor trying to make it in the UK, you mentioned some of the big shows that people tend to be on. So they're kind of are soap operas. Now, they're not really American style soap operas.
No.
They're a bit gritty.
Yeah, it's a very different style. It's a very different style of soap opera acting.
Yeah. You mentioned, can you share what one of your roles are? I suspect they were short roles. You were in Emmerdale, which is basically set in a village and on a farm.
Yeah,
So
which is actually the main base location for that, for the actual farm. It's like the actual main village. It's about 15 to 20 minutes away from where my parents live. So it's something that we could, even as children, we could go on bike rides, and we'd go past this one specific little hill and be like, oh, that's the entrance to where the Woolpack is or whatever. So there'd be things like that. My first main role that came from just anything screen-wise in England was on a kids' television show on the BBC called My Parents Are Aliens.
This
Which
makes me so happy. I love this show.
I watched that as a kid, and then I went to an acting school that had an agency with it as well, and they would, the auditioners and things like that, casting directors would come in, and I was I think I was 13 years old when I did this, and it was just a boy play. I think my credit was just lad placing bet or something like that. But I was there for 2 days, and it was a big boxing match, and I had, I didn't have any facial hair. I had short, spiky hair, glasses, and a very different pitch in my voice, and I had to be, cheering on this boxing match, and then it got thrown, and I then had to get angry with the lead boy in the family, and then I've done Emmerdale Farm, as you mentioned, which for that one, I think my biggest role in that one, because every once in a while they'll cycle out, if you're just doing like a day play role, they'll cycle you out every 6 to 8 months, just in that way you're not playing, unless you have like a really memorable role, that way you're not too fresh in everyone's heads. And there was this party at, there's a house that's connected to the vet surgery, and my character decided it'd be a really good idea to go into the vet, like break into the vet surgery and release all of the animals that were there. And I came out of the vet surgery holding a guinea pig. And one of the things that the casting team said to me is, "Are you okay handling animals?" And I said, "How big an animal are we talking?" And they go, "A guinea pig." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I have pet guinea pigs at home, not a problem at all." So they gave me this guinea pig, and it was just the most relaxed animal I've ever handled in my career. Didn't move. It just, in between takes, a little bit of lettuce or whatever, and then almost got into a fight with the one of the main cast in that. And then I had a role on Coronation Street. I don't know if that one's on my IMDb because some of the credits are very difficult to find. Obviously, soap operas in England are on for 5 days a week.
Yes.
Something like that. They're very, very difficult to find. In Emmerdale, I think Coronation Street's been the longest running one at over 50 years.
Decades it's been going. Yeah.
So finding one day play role is, needle in a haystack work. But yeah, that was, I forget what I did in that. I was in a school doing something, and and then I've had bits on Hollyoaks, and then TV dramas for BBC. There was an appearance where I think it was a show called Worried About the Boy, and it was about the life of Boy George, as he was young and just starting Culture Club, and I got cast as a young member of Spandau Ballet as Tony Hadley.
That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know if that's on my I don't know if that's on my IMDb or not. But I was in the trailer with the rest of the guys in the band, and we were singing Gold and True, and just really jamming out with each other. Even though we didn't have to sing in the show, it was just make an appearance, and that was it. It was and then started out with the background work. Did my rounds on that circuit, and you really get an appreciation for everything, the waiting and what background work, movies, TV shows, vertical work. Everyone plays their part. Otherwise, it'd just be an empty set. So. Yeah.
So obviously, to everyone watching, you are no longer in the UK. You've been in the USA for quite some time. So I have to ask then, what was the call to leave these amazing shores of the UK and live in the USA?
So as I mentioned, I've been back and forth to the US 2 or 3 times a year for about 5 years. I'd actually been working as a lifeguard about an hour and a half outside of Boston in Massachusetts. And then I had a bit of time left on my visa, went to travel, and then it ended up being in 2015 when I made the move. I had family out here, and I came over, stayed with them. I was going up and down I was living on the East Coast at the time. I would go up and down to New York to work, auditions in and out of Manhattan or in North Jersey. And I did a music video, and I was casting for things like Blue Bloods, and Dior commercials with doing some very, very bizarre things. And then it was around this time in 2017 when I eventually made the move out to California. And you really get an appreciation for. I was watching this in Jeff's interview, that you make the move out here. And I didn't necessarily think it would happen for me straight away, but I'd done all that networking beforehand and just sort of back and forth, making friends, contacts, just so I could get a bit more of a nucleus when I made the move out here, or if I ever made the move out here. And I would have auditions here and there, but things were more expensive out here than they were on the East Coast. And it didn't quite slot into place for me then, so I was working day to day, trying to keep a roof over my head, bills paid. And auditions would come in and you'd do them as usual in this industry. You'd maybe do 60 to 70 and hear nothing, and then you'd hear back from one. You have no name. That's what you kind of really expect. Yeah. And then when I started to find sort of a little bit of a footing, the world shut down. Obviously, we had the pandemic. And it was during that time I got lucky that I got given my a project during that got me my SAG eligibility, which is a massive, massive stepping stone for a lot of actors. But because the world was shut down, studios weren't filming. There was no need for me to cash in on it, so I stayed SAG eligible, which as a yes or no thing just makes you still non-union. And because of that reason, when these very strangely named projects came up on my casting profiles online, I was able to apply for them because they said must be non-union, and that became my entry into the vertical space. So,
amazing.
Yeah.
So first of all, I just want to say you have lifeguard experience. Clearly, we now need a lifeguard vertical. I don't know why that's not happened.
I feel like I've seen one. Are we allowed to platform drop on this?
Yes, of course.
So I feel like I may have seen one on Real Short at some point, but I'm not 100% certain.
But yeah, we need more lifeguard verticals. I mean, it's obvious. What better reason for all our male leads to not be wearing a t-shirt? So.
Right. I mean, we're all sort of tailor-made to just be wearing a pair of swim shorts.
Exactly.
It makes sense.
And hopefully in a really nice filming location for you all. So
yeah, a nice, glorious, sunny backdrop. I don't know where here in Los Angeles we could find something like that, but I'm sure we can cobble something together.
So yeah, right. So verticals. Your first vertical. What was the first one that you did? I have your IMDb open. According to that, it's Return of the Lost Heiress. Is that correct?
Again with Real Short. Yeah, that was the first one. That was it wasn't a big role in the spectrum of the number of days I filmed, but in order, it's been out for almost a year now. Whatever. In order for my character to have, if my character didn't pass on in that project, the story couldn't have happened. So It was a small role, but pivotal to the story.
Yeah.
And it was very, very strange. I mean, I know from watching, like I said, I watched Jeff's interview and Eric's and Kelsey, and everyone seems to have this recurring theme of you don't really know, like vertical format drama is what the casting description is, and then you get there and the monitors are all vertical and everything's moving at a fast pace. The window for filming is so much narrower, so it's very, very different from what you're used to. Whether you've been to drama school, whether you haven't, it moved very fast paced. You've got to know your lines. We have only a couple takes, so it was just very, very strange, but it was great.
What did you make of the scripts? Because obviously there are certain style. Kind of how prepared are you for that? And what do other people tell you? Because I hear quite a lot that when you turn up on set, you get slightly more experienced people are like, right, this is what you need to know about how verticals work.
Yeah, so I'm in the position now where there was a couple cast members in that project who are where I am now, and I was the new guy. And I'd done a lot of auditioning, and a friend of mine used to help me out, and she'd tell me, Robert, what is this script? Like the wording is so strange. I said, I don't know, but I want this job, so just roll with it. Whatever it says on the paper, we make the best of the content that we have. So then you show up on set, and thankfully in that one, the script actually wasn't the stereotypical vertical script, but it was very, very sort of over the top and very overly dramatic. And yeah, the pacing of it all was very bizarre for me, cause, coming from that sort of television background where you film a lot less during the day, but you have more takes, different setups. It was very, very strange to me. It was the only thing that was casting at the time, so it's sort of you embrace it, and I don't want to say fall in line, but you embrace that world, or you don't.
Yeah.
You don't work. So for me, it was I was the new guy. I show up, I pay attention to everything that's going on. I talk to not just the actors, but you talk to the crew, you talk to the directors, producers, everybody. You want to make sure you don't want to be the person that holds anything up, and you also don't want to be just sort of this sad face on set. Everyone, it's a collaborative effort. It doesn't matter, like if you're a lead, your main supporting background. It doesn't matter. It's a collaborative effort, and everyone plays their part. And that's what I tried to do. And then it turned out that the same production team from that project asked me to go back in 2 projects later.
Amazing.
So yeah.
So I do want to ask about Forbidden Love or Uncle's Temptation, which is on Playlet. Because whenever you go on Playlet, it's always there. It's always there in the recommendation.
Wonderful.
I think it's one of those ones that just keeps delivering and delivering and delivering. So it's you and the lovely Kelsey Susino.
Yep.
It's like the uncle romance, basically. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah.
But it's great. I mean, I always think you get a great entrance in that. You get to stride in when they're like, "Who's going to marry you?" And you get to go.
It may to this day be one of my favorite entrances that I've ever done. Plus, also, I'm wearing that all black look, which is just, it's clean. I love a good all black look. Yeah, it was, again, like I said, it was my second ever credit, my second ever project that I did. And it was so much more fun. Like when I was doing Lost Heiress, my scenes were so much more condensed. Whereas a lot of the scenes can go on for pages and pages in the script. So I was very unprepared for that. Kelsey is obviously a seasoned vet with all these, and she was phenomenal on that set. Can't say enough good things about working with Kelsey, which is an ongoing trend because, rewind a couple months ago. In fact, not even a couple months ago. It was the tail end of February through early March. I was working with Kelsey Maskell, and again, phenomenal to work with. But for Forbidden Love, it was just so fast paced, and the storyline aspect of it was strange because I was wondering how my nephew is only a couple of years younger than me, and then it was explained, and it was that sort of strong character. My first introduction into the billionaire character, like actually being a billionaire as opposed to in Lost Heiress where I was, but it wasn't really shown. Yeah. But that strong character, and it was my closest introduction to that point of being the dream role, which would be a Bond kind of role.
Yes, Bond, definitely. Amazon, if you're listening, Robert's available.
Yeah, which is that's a topic that we can talk about a little bit later. Yeah. With regards to prospective gigs, but it was fantastic to do, and my memories of that are so very clear. Just being that it was that first big role. It was shot over the course of 5 days. In the spectrum of filming a vertical, we normally do them over the course of 7 or 8 days. We did this over 5 or 6 days.
Wow. With
1 day off. And when you're delivering 15 plus pages at a time with that, it's very, very fast paced. And we were doing that as it was getting a little bit hotter here in Los Angeles, which our summers are very, very hot. So me wearing a suit every day was, the wardrobe team, bless them, they had ice packs readily available for me in between, like when we were having lunch. They'd take my shirt off and put it in the freezer, things like that. So yeah. It was a lot, but it was so much fun. And getting the script, and obviously there's a lot of intimacy in it, and you wonder how it's all going to be done again, such a narrow format. And I felt like it was done tastefully. I know it's sometimes a lot of intimacy can be a little overly gratuitous, but it's I'm glad that it's still up there.
Is that one of the verticals you say you get the most message about?
I do. Yeah, I have. First of all, big shout out to a lot of them. I have some very, very dedicated fans in Scotland. I have Netherlands. I have a couple of people who've just started messaging me from Brazil. And yeah, it started out with Forbidden Love, and then they went on to watch more things. But yeah, it was that, and then my first connection with Jackson, the Alexander and James connection in Small Town Girl. They're the two ones that I get messages about the most. And yeah, people saying we want you doing more leading roles, and I'm like, I'm trying.
Okay.
I came into this game late, so there's already a lot of very strong male leads in our business. They're all fantastic. They're all very talented.
So talking about male leads, yes, Small Town Girl finds her Mr. Big Time.
Yep.
I do love that so much. It's all set in a hotel.
Yep.
Jackson is the billionaire CEO.
He is.
You are his right-hand man who makes everything happen,
Yep.
James. And then we've got the lovely Sophia Lopez, who is Natalia?
Yep.
Who is the young Injuin, I would say, who ends up rising through the hotel ranks rather fast.
Very quickly.
It turns out that apart from hiring you, Alexander Cole does not hire a good team for his hotel. The staff report...
No, some very questionable hires in that hotel. Some very questionable ones.
So, what was it like? Because I know that was your first experience working with Jackson Tiller and Production House 8. And anyone who kind of follows, and obviously a lot of people follow Jackson Tiller,
they do.
That's not the only time you've worked. So...
No.
What comes first? Do they cast Jackson and then you? Or is it like Robert's like, I'm only doing this if Jackson's the lead? Like, how does that work? In my view, you've both got it in your contract. I'm not doing it without this person.
I would love to have... If I made a career, obviously I love being the lead, but Jackson makes life very, very easy on set. Whether you're on set ready to film, off set, just casually doing whatever. He is an annoyingly nice person. He may be the nicest person I've ever worked with on an acting set. The very first time I did a screen test for a vertical project, I didn't know it was between me and one other person from what I was told. I didn't know who it was until I started seeing production happen. And that other person was Jackson. And because of that, I sort of had it in my mind, I don't like this man. I don't like him. And then that very quickly changed when we worked together. We did a table read, a virtual table read with all of the main cast. And he's just laid back. He's very chill, as cool as could be. And then you get on set and he's just, there's this aura about him that people just gravitate towards. And it's very easy to understand why after you've worked with them. I know that Jeff mentioned it from when they worked together. But yeah, I think at this point in his career, especially in the vertical world, I think Jackson's a bit beyond having to apply for anything. People just come out to him because he's star power. People will watch his stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So then I actually auditioned for a different role. I believe I actually auditioned for the role that Adam Chisnell applied for. Then I feel like the way that it ended up was the right way. Casting once again nailed their selections. And I got the role as James. I showed up and, I got to be this... It wasn't necessarily a shadow for Jackson, but I was able to follow him around and then just not only learn... So I was still very new in the vertical game then. I think that was only my 6th project that I did. And just able to absorb everything that, like the experience that he gives and the way that he works with Production House 8, because it was obviously not his first time. and it was a great lesson, if nothing else. And then, yeah, obviously Alexander and James clearly had this good connection on camera, and I was asked to go back. I feel like it may have only been 2.5 weeks later when we filmed Surprise, and that again was. I filmed a couple of horizontal films in between doing that, and the first thing he said on the table read for that was, "Great seeing you. How was your filming experience?" Like, he didn't want to just jump straight into it. He wanted to ask how everything else was for everybody. So I feel like he might be getting sick of me at this point. He's probably too nice to say it, but we just wrapped up filming our fourth project together. So he officially has been in a third of my vertical credits. The other 1/3 of those have been lead roles for me. 1/3 have been with Jackson, and then the other ones have been, either major supporting or just bit player work. And this past one is a little bit of a different one. It's freshly wrapped up, so I won't be able to. I'm sure I can't say much more than that. But it's a very different connection that he and I have. Oh, I'll leave it at that.
I do think as well we could play with this in that we could have. I would love now. I want you to be the CEO's assistant that turns. We've all got lulled into this full sense of security that you're always the dream team, and then you could turn, take out Jackson Hill, and seize control of the company. I feel this could happen. I feel let's play against strike there.
I feel like you have a bigger pull in this world than I do. So you can. If you can want him to get a ball rolling with that, I'm sure Jackson would be fair game with that. Just try out something different. I know that the actors at least, and definitely a lot of pockets of the fan bases they're definitely wanting more and more genres to come out, and something different from the. Don't get me wrong, love playing the billionaire. I love playing a werewolf.
Yeah.
But switching it up isn't something that's bad. So I'm more than happy to have that kind of connection with him.
And then talking of different genres, you are in Arresting My Mafia X, which is vertical, but definitely brings in a little bit of the buddy police team in it. Because I think one of the favourite bits is, again, it's with the rather fabulous Sophia Lopez, and then you've got Mark Rieger. But Sophia is part of a police team, which you're also in, and I need to find her on IMDb, but she's absolutely brilliant. What is her name? The amazing actress who heads up the police team, Jolene.
Oh, Jolene, yes, Jolene Anderson.
You're fab, the whole team, and then there's a lot of like really good fun buddy stuff, because there's one thing where you're all on the phone and you end up having to sing a song to cover something. What was that quite fun, and did that feel quite different? Of like, actually, we're doing a little bit more of a buddy thing here.
It did. It was. I took that role because I wanted to have. I've had a lot of people say to me, just day-to-day life with friends, that I'd be really good on sort of those police crime show dramas, which, an NCIS or Law and Order, they do so well. They've been on TV for so long. So taking that was sort of the main reason I did that. And then, just you get on set and we find out what the sort of style we're going for. Sort of, I don't necessarily know if saying slapstick comedy is the right term, but we definitely we were allowed to play. We were allowed to play with it. We had a bit of creative license, and during the national anthem, we were supposed to do a different song. I forget what song it was now. But then in the office, there was a big American flag hanging on the wall. We just changed it. What if everyone sings the Star Spangled Banner? And it's not quite how I imagined my first time of properly singing the Star Spangled Banner as an American citizen would be. But it worked out pretty well. The looks that we were giving each other on camera, I don't think I've actually seen that episode yet. But the looks that we were giving ourselves on camera, we were just like, do we look anxious enough? Do we look uncomfortable enough for the camera?
You do, don't worry.
We do? Okay, perfect.
It's terribly awkward, which makes it so...
Then we all did our jobs very well. That's exactly how it was supposed to be delivered. But yeah, it was so much fun. And again, working with Production House 8 again, my second time around with Sophia, which if people who have seen either my BTS or her BTS, her and I get along like a house on fire. Absolutely love working with her. She's a delight. And yeah, just had a lot of fun with it. And I'm sure you're desperate to talk about another particular prop that, yeah, okay.
So, well, I love a bit of fake hair, bit of a wig. And you have a classic one in this, because I love this. It's like, they're a high-level police team. You're undercover in a restaurant, and then someone gives you the world's most hilarious fake moustache, which you style out. So all credit to you. You make that look as good as it can possibly look. I mainly want to know, did it stay on? It looks like the sort of thing that would constantly fall off.
So that wasn't my first choice for the mustache. I wanted like a nice pencil-thin Clark Gable type mustache. That's what I was going for, but makeup team said, maybe confirm with Chen, the director, and he and I have worked together. That was our second time around together, and we've now done our fifth together. And I said to him, what do you think of these ones? I like this one. Which one do you prefer? He goes, no, I want that one. And it was the one I ended up wearing, which looked unique on camera. For lack of a better term. But in terms of it staying on, that thing did not want to cooperate. I came to set that day with a bit more of a clean face up here.
Yeah.
And I was in the makeup chair having it glued on by various different types of glue, whether it was makeup glue, whether it was... I may have had regular glue put on. I don't remember. But it took a lot. And then obviously being the fact that it was hot, you can't have air conditioning. We were filming right in the heart of Hollywood for that as well, so there was a lot of noise, so we had to keep our noise levels down to a minimum. Excuse me. So because I was getting more warm, it just kept on melting. And the corners just kept on falling. Whilst this bit stayed on, that was falling, and every once in a while I'd have to go really sort of like Captain Hook almost, just twisting it back on. And it reached a point where makeup had to leave their area and come down and just be on standby. But it was one of those things where you just got to embrace the role. That was what my role was. And I don't naturally think of myself as a funny person. I can be serious. And that's the more dramatic roles, like in Forbidden Love and a lot of the three that I've just done more recently. Those are the roles I like doing sort of naturally. Yeah. But doing the comedy... is something that's just come from the vertical stuff, and you just embrace it. Like I said, if you show that you're willing to be flexible with different roles, they'll ask you to come back. Yeah. And I embraced it. I rocked it. I think I remember Chen looking up and going, "Oh my god, that's amazing."
He knew what he was doing, because the visual.
He knew what he was doing. He has a great image in his head, and we worked with it. And I loved it.
So now I want to ask you about some of the roles you've hinted at, and I know you might be a little bit limited in what you can tell us.
Sure.
You mentioned that you have, clearly actresses called Kelsey, you put them in the vertical, it's going to be brilliant, because we have Kelsey Susino, and obviously you filmed with Kelsey Maskell. What can you share about that?
So it's one of those twisted family dynamic projects. Obviously, Kelsey was the lead. My character is it's one of her male leads. So it's myself and Richard Trotter, who fantastic guy, wonderful individual. I've been very blessed with everyone that I've worked with. Knock on wood, has been fantastic to work with. And we have just a lot of unhealthy relationship twists and turns in it. Different side of me that people definitely have not seen up until that point. So that was nice to be able to sort of flex that acting muscle again. I'm trying desperately not to say anything that's going to get me in trouble.
I know people normally say you don't get told, do you, about releases?
No.
Fans tell you when something's out before anyone else.
Yeah, I didn't actually find out that Forbidden Love had come out on Playlet until I followed the Playlet account, and I didn't find out until I opened up Instagram one day and it just popped up. And there was episode 1, and it was just Kelsey Susino pushing me against a wall. And that's how I found out that it had been released. So it's something I'll probably... I'm still in touch with the production team, so I can shoot them a message and find out, hopefully. But like I said, we wrapped that at the very beginning of March, and then I flew to China 12 days later. So I've got 3 projects now that are in post-production that'll probably all come out around the same time. And yeah, I don't know the release date as to any of them yet. But yeah, working with Kelsey was fantastic. It was nice and serious on camera, and then we were laughing and, doing whatever else behind the camera. It was great.
So now you've mentioned China, we can talk about China.
Yes.
So obviously,
very excited.
People who follow, first of all, if you don't follow Robert on Instagram, you 100% should, because his account is brilliant. He's one of the best people for giving you a behind the scenes of what goes on Verticals, just like how it works, the setup. There's always fun photos. So totally follow him. And so anyone who's followed that knows that you have been filming in China. So how did that come about? And did you leap at it? Was it something you were looking to do, or was it unexpected?
I've always, ever since I was younger, I remember watching big blockbuster feature films and, an American cast and crew going to film abroad over in the desert in wherever in the Middle East. And that was always something that I wanted to do. And then obviously being from England, I then made the move to America and I was able to work here. But I live here, so it didn't... I'm going to get in trouble with this for my family, but America feels more like home to me. And it I guess it always has in my brain. So I don't see working here as anything other than just, this is me getting up and going to work. Whereas then when I got this casting opportunity in China, and I thought, absolutely, I want to do it. And I was originally offered a double feature, so back to back, I'd have gone at the beginning of March, literally as I would have wrapped up filming with Kelsey, and then I would have jumped on a plane. I had been over in China to film my first one, and then 2 weeks later film the one that I actually did do. And I thought my brain needed to slow down and think, you have responsibilities here. You don't know how it's going to work out. Why don't you just do one to start off with? And I was given the option of 3 different audition tapes. So I had my favorite sort of concepts in my head. 2 of them were billionaire ones. One of them was the werewolf one that I ended up being cast in, which was kind of nice because I'd done a werewolf drawing beforehand, but I was just cast as a regular doctor, and that was an incurable love. But doing that was maybe a month-long process. So whilst I was in between takes with my project with Kelsey, I was then emailing production. I was emailing casting. Because you have questions, and then sometimes those questions don't materialize in your head straight away. So then lots of different questions come into your head later. And we then ended up getting a big Zoom group call going with myself, the 2 girls I went with, Natalie Collins and Abigail Fawn, and then the other team who were filming in northern China. And a lot of doubts were put to rest. We all knew what we had to do. We had our contacts, the people that would sort of pick us up from the airport, this, that, the other. And it ended up being... Natalie was flying on a different flight because she was coming from a family holiday in Ireland. Myself and Abigail had never met in person. We met at LAX at, I believe it was 8 p.m. Then by 11 p.m, we were on a flight, and it was a 15-hour flight. So while we were in the air, Saturday didn't exist for us. I apologise, there's a helicopter going overhead. I don't know if you could hear that noise.
Yeah, no, it's all right. I've been to LA before. I remember the helicopters.
Okay, yeah. Lots of them in my area. It's like a big fly zone. So yeah, her and I spent the best, I'd say probably 10 to 12 of those hours just talking and getting to know each other. And that's one of the things that we have to do on these vertical sets. We film 12 hours a day. And the pace is just so quick. The shortest sets are 5 days. The longest sets are anywhere from sort of 8 to 10. but you have to get to know each other very quickly. And that's what her and I did. And then when we met Natalie a few hours after we had landed, she just fitted right in. It was great. It was a great dynamic. And the three of us, we've literally been texting with each other this morning. The two of them are both on set right now. You know, I'm very proud of the both of them because they're both fantastic. And it ended up being one of those things where I know that Kelsey and Eric went to Turkey, and that was sort of like that was the big high profile one. Jackson went to Mexico and filmed recently, and I don't know how much time they had for looking around, but we were on set 14 hours a day. If you broke it down, we were on set for 14 hours a day, and we didn't have any time. We had one day off in the whole thing where we were able to go and see some of the sites. I don't know if I've posted any of the stuff that we did, but it was, again, just we enjoyed ourselves as much as we could. We embraced it as much as we could, the culture, and that was always the big thing I wanted to do as an actor growing up, was go and experience different cultures. When else are you going to get the chance to do that? And luckily, I now have other people asking me to go abroad and do it. I'm absolutely going to jump at the chance as soon as I can again, because it was phenomenal. So,
if you don't mind me asking, obviously amazing actresses, Abigail Thorne and Natalie Collins, but they are both a little younger than you. How do you kind of approach that? Because I would feel there's almost like a big brother just kind of keeping them safe a bit.
Very much so.
Do you know what I mean? But
very much so. Yeah. It's especially when you go to somewhere that's different like that. You don't. First of all, you don't want anybody to ever be taken advantage of on set. And I do feel like, obviously, I feel like regardless of your star name, whether you're male, whether you're female, the women carry our shows so much more than the guys do. A lot of times our male characters can be very stoic, sort of that strong silent type, and it can be a lot more delicate, especially with the intimate scenes for women. And I felt an obligation, not even just as their co-star, but as their friend and just as the leading man on the project, to do my best to protect them as much as I could and put my foot down whenever I felt like something wasn't necessarily how we would do it here in the US. So there was I didn't feel like I necessarily had to do that as much with Abigail's character, but being that Natalie was my leading lady, I felt like I had to do that a little bit more, especially when it came to a lot of the kissing scenes, and the inevitable intimacy scenes that come about with vertical work. So there were certain times I definitely had to say, we're not doing that. There's a certain part of watching, not even just vertical work, but any form of media where you kind of want the audience to use their imagination as to what's going to happen or what the eventual outcome is of that scene. And that's what my take was from doing that specific scene. Audience can use their imagination.
I'm quite happy with that. I mean, I don't need
it doesn't need to be overly gratuitous.
Yeah, it's like,
no.
Or I think a lot of it as well is trusting all of you as actors and actresses. It's like you don't need to spell it out in any of these things, either with the dialogue or those scenes. It's like it's obvious that there's chemistry or connection if there's great actors and actresses involved.
Yeah. And I also think from a sort of a selfish perspective, I suppose, almost, if I plan on being friends with both of them when we came back, and that's what's happened. But what would it say about me, Robert, as a person, not as an actor, but as a person, if I thought I don't want to ruffle any feathers here from the director's standpoint or from the network standpoint. That's not what I stand on. How would I feel if my sister was in this position? That's how I view it. So, and that's how I hope every single leading man, or sometimes the male villain, has to have those intimacy scenes every once in a while. That's how I hope that every single guy in our space does it. So,
and I think a lot of them do, from what I've heard, and I think
I genuinely do. Yeah, I know that
spaces.
Jackson's very much like that.
so special because you all look after each other. So
Yeah, we are one big
it's lovely.
family. We all fight each other for roles, but at the same time, we all care about each other. There's a lot of people I don't know. Like I mentioned, Eric and Jeff. I've never met or worked with either of them. I would love to, but we care about how things are done. Like I'm very interested in seeing how Eric's work turns out later. Love and Blood.
So yeah, we have to talk about exciting projects. Obviously, we know you've got 3 in the can, but what would
Yeah.
you like to do, and where would you like to see Verticals go? Adding on to that, do you have any other ambitions in the space? Because I know some people also start looking at, maybe I want to direct, maybe I want to write. Kind of, what's your vision for your future?
I touched on it earlier. The dream for me is always Bond. Now, my belief on that is, I mean, people should have seen the last film already, so it shouldn't be a spoiler by this point, but James Bond died. So I would like to play a form of secret agent. That would be fantastic. A Mission Impossible style film would be fantastic. I mentioned earlier that there's conversations happening. I've had a sit down with a producer that I've worked with many times now, good friend, about making a James Bond style vertical. So that would be
Please.
That would be a dream.
Internet.
That would be a dream for me.
Yeah.
I know there's been other conversations with. I know Jackson has more pull in this world than I do, but I think he's at least developing, if not developed, a script for something that will be a different style. I have in the past dabbled with, literally before I actually got into the vertical world, I wrapped up doing a martial arts film. I was both an actor in it and I also helped produce it. Producing has always been something I've loved doing, and I would love to continue doing in the future. So hopefully I can make that a thing, and if not, just more of what I'm doing. I love the momentum that I'm having. As long as I'm making content that the audiences are happy with, because at the end of the day, we can't do this without you. We can't do this without any of the people who watch what we do. Same things with going to the movies or watching a television show. If the viewership is down, things get cancelled, or you don't see people working. And you always want to see everybody working, doing what they love doing, and that's what I hope to just continue doing. I've diversified my roles a little bit this year, and not that I ever want to get away from being, everyone's favorite number 2, seemingly.
But we know you can do so much more, and you're bringing so much more.
I love doing it. It gives you a chance to flex those acting chops.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, and every once in a while, it's just nice to be a brooding man with a bottomless bank account. Yeah. So,
do you get given? Have you ever had the black card? And I always I'd want to keep the black card if I ever played a
I have been given a few different black cards. I've been given some genuine black cards, and they are very heavy. I've been given some prop black cards, and they were not, and we had to go through a few different props of those. And then sometimes it's just, you get given someone's card from the prop department, and it's always a nice feeling. When I was in China, I got given a very heavy black card. Yeah. I was in my character's house, just sitting down. It was a scene I did with Natalie, and I was telling her, I pull it out of my pocket. This is for you. No strings attached. That kind of thing. It's a very nice thing you read unlimited money on the script. And when you actually feel the weight of it, you're like, okay, there's something to this.
I have to ask you now, just some vertical ticks. Have you done a swimming pool rescue or a swimming pool push?
No, but I was asked to do one. Yeah, I was asked to do a project. It was just before I worked with Jackson for the second time. I had already signed my contract for that project, so I couldn't back out of it. But a guy who I worked with on Mafia Boss's Runaway Bride, he was the first AD, and he's now directing a lot of stuff. He wanted me to play his lead villain at the time, and I would have had to do a swimming pool push. I don't know if my character would have gone in or not, But again, with my lifeguarding background, we can make it happen. Let's make it happen.
Or at least you could set up swimming lessons for the ladies of Vertland, because it is worrying, their inability to swim.
Yeah. They just always seem to find themselves in that swimming pool, and it does become worrying after all. It's very much a trend. I don't want to point any fingers, but
I also have to ask, have you bankrupted a company? You've been told bankrupt the company or cancelled a meeting? There's a lot of cancelling shareholder meetings.
I have. I'm just trying to think how many I've done. I think I might have actually done it to Kelsey's family in Forbidden Love. In fact, yes, I definitely did. It's nice wielding that kind of power. It's a dangerous power to have, but it's nice having that kind of power. And I feel like I've probably done that on Jackson's behalf as well.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Not a man to mess with.
No,
and then finally, I have to ask, because if you go on your Instagram, you do see these photos. What do they do to your hair, Robert Keefe, and give you that hair clip? Like, what? Is this like hair and makeup's attempt to tame your hair?
So, my hair grows very, very long and thick very fast. If I was to have my way about it, especially during the summer here in Los Angeles, it would be the way it was between that period of doing Forbidden Love and then right before I did Incurable Love, where it's shorter on the sides, a bit longer on the top, and long enough to style at least. But that's not always what casting teams want, so I grew it out a bit. And then it was between doing... It was a different makeup team on Small Town Girl than it was on Surprise. So I just sort of... I don't remember if I had time to get it cut, if my stylist was busy or whatever it was. But yeah, my hair grew out, and then Amanda, the makeup girl, saw it and was like, yeah, that's not going to work. So she put a clip in, and we were there for 7 or 8 days. So our joke between her and I, just for that first project, was, why don't we just add a couple clips in just to see what everyone's reaction is? And then she ran out of clips on that day, but she had this one pink clip that had a ribbon on it. And I thought, we'll have some fun. So that one went straight in the middle. And then, obviously, you've got to post about it. You know, you want to make sure if you're going to have fun, you might as well let everyone else see it. And then it became a running joke. And then she's been my makeup girl with Production House 8 ever since then. And I feel like I posted a video when I was working with Arresting My Mafia X. Sophia took a video of me, which might come from this side, I had 7 clips, one for each day of filming, all the way down the side of my head. And I actually had someone message me about it. You know, why do you have so many clips? Why is it necessary? Because they would only ever see my hair sort of pinned back and spray painted, so it was just like glued to the side of my head. Then they went back and rewatched Incurable Love. The number of scenes that I have, whether I'm talking to Emily, whether I'm talking to Griffin, my fringe is just down here, which obviously that doesn't translate well for a director. So they messaged me and said, now I understand why you wear those clips in your hair. And that's just sort of the running joke that it became. But I was going to make an apology to you, actually. I was trying to get my hair at least cut a little bit, just to look a bit more presentable for this. And I couldn't coordinate my schedule with the guy who normally does it. Yeah, it's now just sort of long and overkept. So
it looks amazing, and thank you for support and sharing all that.
I tried to make it a little bit more groomed for this. I didn't want to show up on your camera looking disheveled.
You have been absolutely amazing. I can't thank you enough for everything you have shared and giving us your time. So thank you.
You've been a delight. You are a delight, and please continue doing what you're doing for us, because a lot of people didn't have the awareness that you've given us. So thank you so much. Really appreciate you.
My pleasure.